What's up, nerds? I'm Kendra, your not-so-friendly neighborhood otaku, and welcome to my channel where I talk all things anime, manga, manhwa, and webcomics. If that's the type of thing you're into, then subscribe because I'll put one video out every Thursday to Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, and 2 to 3 shorts out every Monday to Wednesday, also at 1 p.m. Today, I'm going to be continuing the series where I go back and reread the Jujutsu Kaisen manga over from the beginning and bring you all along with me. As always, this series is great for anyone who's a first-time JJK fan, anime only, or who, like me, as the plot progresses, forget some of those key moments or details or bits of information because this is a fairly convoluted and deep series to be looking into when you fully are grasping the 20+ volumes that we're now in. Volumes 1 through 10, It's been a long time, so let's take a look at Volume 3. In Chapter 17, Megumi and Nobara are confronted by Aoi and Mai from the Kyoto sister school who arrived early to scope out their competition. Aoi asks Megumi about his taste in women, but when Megumi says, "Why should I share that information with a stranger?" Aoi introduces himself. He claims that a person's taste says a lot about them and he hates boring people. He doesn't want his last Goodwill event to be against a boring person. After thinking of Sumiki, Megumi says he doesn't have a preference as long as they're compassionate. Aoi clearly isn't impressed by this answer and confirms in his mind that Megumi is a boring person. Megumi then senses Aoi's about to attack and he tries to summon Nue, but before he has the chance, he is slammed through the doorway. Nobara tries to help, but Mai restrains her. Mai notes that despite being a grade 2 Jujutsu sorcerer, Megumi is still no match for Aoi. Nobara then chides Mai, saying she's not as pretty as her twin sister Maki, after which Mai grabs Nobara from behind and pulls out a gun. At this time, Aoi follows Megumi outside where he's recovering from the first attack. He claims Megumi trampled all over his kindness when he gave him the chance to prove he wasn't boring. Megumi then recognizes Aoi as the famous grade 1 Jujutsu sorcerer who defeated the curses that appeared at the night parade of 100 demons. Megumi then tries to combine Nue with Toad to summon the Well's Unknown Abyss to improve his chances against Aoi. He summons several winged toads and tries to keep Aoi at a distance in order to nullify his strength. However, Aoi speeds through Megumi's guard and lands another attack. This time, Megumi recovers quickly, but Aoi slams his head into a wall and throws him through the platform above them. When Aoi jumps up to follow him through the platform, he's caught by the tongue of Megumi's Toad Shikigami. Before Megumi can go on the offense, their fight is interrupted by Inumaki, who uses his cursed speech to make them stop moving. Panda then appears and punches Aoi, asking why he just couldn't wait until the Goodwill event and tells him to leave. Meanwhile, we see Nobara lying on the ground with several wounds from Mai's gun. As Mai tells Nobara to watch who she picks a fight with, Maki's pole knocks the gun out of Mai's hand. In Chapter 18, Nobara lies unconscious on the floor while Maki and Mai confront each other. Maki claims they're both worthless since all Mai can do is infuse objects with her cursed energy. Mai then retorts saying having no cursed technique is still better than having no cursed energy at all. Giving up on their argument, Maki then turns her attention to Nobara, asking if she can stand. Mai claims she won't be able to, but Nobara quickly regains consciousness and wrestles Mai to the ground. They're interrupted when Aoi appears and tells Mai it's time to leave. Aoi says he has to make it back in time for his favorite idol, Takada's meet and greet in Tokyo. Before they leave, Mai reminds them that they'll be going all out during the Goodwill event. Then, Nobara asks Maki if it's true that she doesn't have any cursed energy. Maki confirms this and says she became a Jujutsu sorcerer to prove those who doubt her wrong. Meanwhile, at Kyoto High, Gojo meets with Principal Yashinobu in Principal Yaga's place. Gojo demands to know more about how the higher-ups set Yuji up and reveals that he was attacked by 2 special grade curses that were intelligent and able to communicate. Then Gojo talks about how both the curses and new generation of sorcerers are growing stronger each year to the point where special grade may be surpassed. Gojo then warns Principal Yoshinobu that he's not the only one questioning authority. About 1 month later, at a theater, 3 boys are found dead with distorted heads. We then see the blue-haired patch-faced Mahito that Pseudo-Geto talked to at the end of Volume 2, leaving the theater. In Chapter 19, we meet Junpei, who went to watch a movie in a theater where 3 of his rude classmates were also watching it. They cause a disturbance and their bodies begin to morph and distort until they're unrecognizable. Junpei then notices the man that killed them and follows him out into the alleyway. In the alleyway, Mahito asks Junpei if those 3 kids were important to him. To Mahito's surprise, Junpei asks if he can learn how to do what Mahito did. Outside, grade 1 Jujutsu sorcerer Nanami brings Yuji to investigate the disturbance at the theater. He shows Yuji how to track the residual cursed energy left behind from a cursed technique. As they follow the trace, Gojo shows up to poke fun at Nanami for his uptight ex-office worker attitude. Here, Nanami notes that despite trusting Gojo, he can't respect him because of how Jujutsu society works. For that same reason, he can't recognize Yuji as a Jujutsu sorcerer. Nanami then asks Yuji to prove his worth outside of being Sukuna's vessel. Back to their investigative work, Nanami and Yuji run into 2 curses while checking out the place. Yuji asks Nanami not to underestimate him, but Nanami claims it's an adult's responsibility to protect children. He then draws his cleaver-like weapon and prepares for battle, noting it's experiencing those little losses in life that help people grow into adults. In Chapter 20, Nanami explains that his ability allows him to recognize weak points on the enemies that he then slashes apart. He asks Yuji to pay attention as he uses his wrap blade to strike the weak point of one of the curses. With one curse dealt with, Yuji focuses on the remaining opponent. He thinks back to his training with Gojo where he learned that his cursed energy has a time lag. Gojo taught him how to use this time lag to his advantage, making one cursed infused punch into a dual impact strike called Divergent Fist. Using this new move, Yuji lands his dual impact punch on the other curse. With both of their opponents down, Nanami realizes something isn't right and he takes a picture of the curses. He tells Yuji to stop attacking and then shows him that both of the curses show up in the photo. They report their findings to Shoko, who back in the lab identifies that these are actually ex-humans who possessed cursed energy after transmogrification. Both victims were killed through the shock of transmogrification, but somehow granted the ability to use cursed energy like a cursed spirit. Shoko assures Yuji that he's not responsible for their deaths, but he's upset regardless. Nanami thinks the residuals at the investigative site were meant to draw them out, meaning the enemy is skilled. Meanwhile, in his hideout in the sewers, Junpei meets with Mahito, the cursed spirit who transmogrified the victims. Here, Mahito explains that cursed spirits are born from humans' negative energy. An image of fear shared by many can give birth to these imaginary vengeful spirits. When Junpei asks Mahito then what he was born from, he responds that he was born from the hate people feel towards one another. In Chapter 21, Mahito shows Junpei a giant and a hand-sized human he used as experiments to test how big and small he can make them. Mahito then asks Junpei why he's so comfortable around corpses despite being human. Junpei says he would only be angry if the humans were someone he cared for. He expects cruelty from others and thinks people should strive for his level of indifference. To this, Mahito claims that Junpei's indifference is his own form of revenge against humans. Mahito then explains that people's emotions come from their soul, which is separate from their heart, and Mahito has the ability to see people's souls. He then tells Junpei not to limit himself to mere indifference. Meanwhile, Nanami and Yuji meet with Ijichi to discuss the disappearances and deaths by transmogrification. Using the intel gathered from the culprit's residuals, they're able to triangulate the location of their hideout. Yuji's ready to go, but Nanami tells him to focus on finding the witness Junpei rather than working off of this approximation. They don't have enough evidence to prove that Junpei is a curse user, the evil version of a Jujutsu sorcerer. However, his connection to the victims needs to be examined further. After Yuji leaves the room, Nanami tells Ijichi that the culprit is purposefully luring them towards the hideout. He doesn't want to put Yuji in harm's way, so he's gonna head there alone. When Yuji re-enters the room, he tells Nanami to be careful and they go their separate ways. Ijichi then drives Yuji around looking for Junpei. They decide to use small curses known as flyheads to test Junpei's sensitivity to cursed spirits. If Junpei can't see the flyheads and is attacked, Yuji will go rescue him. If he can see them and flees, he'll be brought in for further questioning, and if he sees them and fights back, he'll immediately be arrested. Ijichi reminds Yuji that he cannot take on missions above his assignment, so if Junpei is a grade 2 or higher, he needs to get out of there. Elsewhere beneath the city, Nanami cuts down numerous transmogrified humans as he enters Mahito's hideout. He tells Mahito to reveal himself as he doesn't enjoy killing humans. Then Mahito appears, noting his excitement in having someone strong to experiment on. In Chapter 22, Nanami compares Mahito's flippant attitude and extreme strength to Gojo. Mahito wraps both hands in cursed energy and tries to attack Nanami, but he's able to deflect both hands and kick Mahito. He then winds up his blunt cleaver-like sword to identify Mahito's weak points. Mahito guards against Nanami's attack with cursed energy, but he still almost completely severs off an arm. After looking at his hand hanging on by a thread, Mahito and Nanami decide to gather information on each other, as Nanami is convinced he's related to the special grade unregistered curse that Gojo ran into. Suddenly though, Mahito asks Nanami what came first, the body or the soul. Nanami decides to humor him and say the body, but Mahito disagrees, saying that the body is molded from the shape of the soul. Then Mahito fixes his arm, but claims he's not using reverse curse technique to heal it. Mahito then reveals his curse technique, idle transformation, which allows him to manipulate the shape of the soul. Since he can manipulate the shape of souls, he can manipulate the shape of his and others' bodies. Mahito then pulls out 2 small humans he transmogrified and reshapes them into full-size curses, wanting to experiment on a strong jujutsu sorcerer to see if Nanami would survive this process. Nanami ignores him and checks his watch, realizing that his workday ends in 30 minutes and he doesn't want to work overtime. Elsewhere, Junpei runs into one of his teachers who asks why he wasn't at his friend's funerals. This irritates Junpei, who asks his teacher how he can continue to live in ignorance. He prepares to use a curse technique, but Yuji interrupts, stopping the flyhead that Ijichi let out. To get the teacher to leave Junpei alone, he takes his pants and runs away. Once he's gone, Yuji comes back to talk to Junpei. Back underground, Mahito taunts an injured Nanami. Nanami ignores him again and checks the time on his watch. Then Mahito realizes Nanami's cursed energy suddenly spiked and his focus is dead set on him. In chapter 23, we go back to a little bit earlier in Nanami's fight with Mahito. He notices the transmogrified ex-humans crying out for help and recalls Shoko telling him to not hesitate to kill them. Mahito apologizes, saying the transmogrification process doesn't always kill them immediately. Nanami claims it doesn't bother him because he separates his work from his emotions, but Mahito laughs, saying that he can see his soul wavering. After it's revealed that Nanami is a grade 1 jujutsu sorcerer, Mahito claims his strength is perfect for experimentation. He rushes him, touching and injuring his lower abdomen where his soul is. Mahito claims the only reason Nanami isn't a mindless puppet now is because he's subconsciously guarding his soul with cursed energy. Then Mahito reshapes his soul, transforming his legs into 2 horse-like hooves, thinking it'll only take 2 to 3 more strikes to Nanami's soul before he's no longer human. However, Nanami ignores him, taking off his tie and wrapping it around his fist. Seeing Nanami's cursed energy spike, Mahito determines Nanami reserves his cursed energy output based on time, and he's now working overtime. Nanami begins explaining how his cursed technique works as he runs towards a wall with Mahito chasing him. Knowing he must end this fight in one hit, Nanami uses ratio technique collapse, punching the wall of the sewer, exposing a weak point and shattering their surroundings. Mahito prepares to dodge, but Nanami takes him off guard, cutting off a leg. He then tells Mahito they'll meet again if they both survive, then leaves. A piece of the sewer roof then falls and crushes Mahito. Back outside, Junpei remembers Mahito warned him about students wearing a spiral pin. They're called jujutsu sorcerers and should be befriended if possible. Yuji decides to be upfront and asks Junpei if he saw anything in the theater where his classmates died. Junpei knows he means Mahito, but he doesn't tell him. Yuji then asks if he can stick around anyway to talk about the movie because he saw it recently too. They appear to bond over the movie as Pseudo-Geto watches on from the distance, glad that someone from their side has befriended Sukuna's vessel. In chapter 24, their conversation about movies continues and Yuji asks if they can go see a movie together in the theater sometime. Junpei gets Yuji's contact information just as his mom arrives to take him home. When she sees Yuji, she invites him to come over and join them for dinner. Back underground, we see Mahito escape, pleased with Nanami's tactics and trap. Then Pseudo-Geto arrives. Mahito tells him he's learned a lot about his own ability and that he's capable of maintaining his soul's shape even when crushed. He can even manipulate cursed energy purely on will alone. Pseudo-Geto then asked about Nanami, but Mahito doesn't know if he survived or not. Back above ground, Ijichi calls Yuji, only to find out he's watching movies at Junpei's place. Afraid Nanami will scold him, he rushes to pick Yuji up, but he gets a call from Nanami requesting assistance from Shoko. Nanami fears Mahito will continue to grow in power, and if he becomes as strong as Jogo, they may not be able to exorcise him before it's too late. Yuji bonds with Junpei at his house, noting that his mom's a good person. He then shares that though he didn't know either of his parents, his grandpa was always there for him. After Yuji takes a call from Ijichi, Junpei outright asks if he's a jujutsu sorcerer, to which Yuji responds yes. Junpei then asks if he'll ever have to kill someone. Though Yuji would prefer not to do that, he's not naive enough to think that's never going to be a choice he has to make. He fears the day he values life less than he does now because it might affect the way he feels about those close to him. After Yuji leaves, Junpei tells himself he would never be able to kill because that would stain his soul. He then thinks about his mom as she awakens in the kitchen. She realizes Yuji left and is confused by this finger on the table in front of her. Having Sukuna's finger in her possession draws a strange cursed spirit behind her. In chapter 25, the last chapter in this volume, we learn that Junpei's mom was killed that night by the cursed spirit attracted by Sukuna's finger. After this incident, Yuji meets back up with Nanami and asks him to let him help fight Mahito next time. Noting that he's still a child and not wanting to put him in a position to kill, Nanami says that Yuji should continue monitoring Junpei for the time being. After his mom was killed, Junpei goes to Mahito to ask what happened. Mahito explains that the finger is a cursed object which attracts cursed spirits, and a human probably paid for that to be put in her possession so a curse would attack her. He then asks Junpei if there's anyone with time and money that resents him. At school, Junpei watches his classmate Shota be recognized in an award ceremony. Mahito and Pseudo-Geto watch from the roof of a nearby building and cast a curtain to keep everyone out. Mahito plans to use Junpei to fight Yuji so they can bring Sukuna's vessel into a binding vow. Pseudo-Geto is intrigued by how much more level-headed Mahito is than Jogo. He prepares to leave so Jujutsu High can discover the finger at Junpei's house, but Mahito stops him, saying he should stay and watch the demise of children. Everyone in the gym where the award ceremony is taking place falls unconscious except for Junpei, Shota, and their teacher. Junpei confronts his teacher, revealing a scar on his head before turning back to Shota. He asks Shota if he was the one who put Sukuna's finger in his house, but Shota doesn't understand. Suddenly, black markings take over half of Shota's body and Junpei knocks him to the ground. Junpei pummels Shota, claiming he's going to die regardless of the finger incident because of his past crimes. Shota apologizes, but Junpei has no sympathy for him. Then, Yuji bursts into the gym to find Junpei at the center of conflict. Horrified, Yuji asks Junpei what he's doing, but Junpei tells the jujutsu sorcerer to stay out of it. And that is volume 3. As always, for those of you who made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye out for next week where I'll post volume 4's synopsis, and I may also post a second video breaking down the series I read that are completed during the months of January to July. So those will be anything I read via physical volumes, Webtoon, Tapas, Shonen Jump, Viz Manga, or Kindle. If you're interested in expanding your horizons and finding something new to read, that may be something you want to stick around and watch. That is all for today, and I will see you next time.